Guys. So this is going to be our unit 1.6. This is our sixth set of notes in Algebra 2. And we're going to be talking about graphing inequalities. And an inequality is simply an equation without an equal sign. Instead, we have the less than or equal to sign, less than symbol. You guys are pretty familiar with these. So when we're graphing inequalities, we are going to use a closed dot for anything that has the equal symbol underneath it. So less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. And if you just want to draw a picture of what that might look like, it's going to look like this, just a bubble that's colored in. And we are going to use an open dot for anything without that equal to. It's going to be just the less than symbol or greater than symbol, and that's going to look like this. Okay, so the closed bubble means that it is included. You want to write that down. And then the open bubble means it's not included. Okay. So if we look at interval notation, we are also going to be using included and not included. So an interval notation is a way to write the solution in an inequality using infinity symbols, parentheses, and brackets. Okay. Nothing much to that. It's just getting used to these symbols. The parentheses indicate that it's not included. It's an open bubble or okay, or not included. So this is our parenthesis. We would use a parenthesis. And we always use a parenthesis for our infinity symbol. Okay, I just want you to remember that. Anytime you write parenthesis, you're always just going to use I'm sorry, anytime you write infinity, you're always going to use the parenthesis symbol. And then included is going to be a bracket. Okay, so our brackets means that the number that we wrote on our number line is included, and that would often go with the circled in bubble. All right, let's go ahead and make a graph right here. I'm just going to put right here, they say that x is less than or equal to 8. I'm going to put my 8 in the middle and add a few numbers on the side. Okay, here's my number line. And if x is greater than 8, right, greater than or equal to 8, it's going to be everything on the right side of 8, right? So I'm going to put a bubble above 8. And this is where I have to look at my symbol and say that, okay, this has an equal sign underneath it. And remember, anything with an equal sign is closed. So it is going to be a bubbled in circle. And I'm going to make my arrow to the right because everything to the right is greater than 8. So we know how to graph. We're pretty familiar with that from Algebra 1, I'm sure. But the interval notation, if you were not in my Algebra 1 class and you're not familiar with it, is we are going to read from left to right. So I would write that somewhere. Write that somewhere on your notes, maybe under here. Read from left to right. Okay. And that's important because we don't want to get our numbers backwards for the interval notation. So if I'm reading from left to right here, I'm going to, my eye is going to hit this bubble first at the 8. So I'm going to put my 8 first. And then I'm also going to, let me erase all that. And then from there, I see the arrow. And the arrow tells me that this is going to go on and on forever for infinity. So I know that 8 is my first number and infinity comes next. All I need to do is figure out what I'm going to use. So in this case, since I hit a closed bubble, means that it is included. That means I'm going to use a bracket for my 8. And remember, our infinity always gets a parenthesis. Okay. Now, infinity symbols, if you're not familiar, if our infinity symbol is on the right, it's always going to be positive. If our infinity symbol comes first, it's always going to be negative. All that means is that since this arrow is going on and on forever in the positive direction, it's a positive infinity. If you have an arrow that goes on the negative direction, it's going to be negative infinity. All right, let's do this one. A is less than -1. So I'm going to put my -1 here. It's a different color. I have -1, 0, 1, -2, -3. Okay, it doesn't look like a 3, but And I am going to put a bubble over my -1, and since it does not have an equal sign underneath that, it is going to stay open. -1 is not included in our answer. And A is less than -1. So that means that my arrow is going to be everything to the left. Everything to the left of -1 is less than 1, -1. Now, if I'm reading from left to right for my interval notation, I'm hitting that arrow first. And so that means it is negative infinity, right? This arrow is going on and on forever in the negative direction. And anytime I have an infinity, it's always going to be a parenthesis. And next thing I'm going to hit is my -1. That's the last point of the graph. So my -1 comes last, and this -1 is open, right? It's not included. And remember, anything that's not included is going to get a parenthesis. Okay. Now we're going to talk about solving inequalities when it looks much more like an equation. Okay. We're going to follow the rules to solve an inequality as we do it as an equation, except we are going to flip, you should be familiar with this, flip the inequality symbol. My goodness. If you multiply or divide by a negative number. And you guys should be somewhat familiar with that already. All right, let's look at number 3. We need to get v by itself. So I want to keep my numbers positive, so I'm going to bring my 17 to the other side. Now I have 18 on this side. And I'm going to bring my 5v to the other side. So 7 minus 5 is going to be 2v. Divide both sides by 2. Now I have that 9 is greater than v. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and put 9 on our number line. I'm going to put a few numbers. And I know that my bubble is going to be over 9, and it's open since this is not a greater than or equal to sign. And I need to figure out which direction is my arrow going. If 9 is greater than v, then v has to be less than 9. So anything that's less than 9 is going to be to the left, right? So if I'm looking at this for my interval notation, I hit my arrow first, reading from left to right. That means that I have a negative infinity on my hands. And it stops at 9. And since 9 is open, it is an open interval, which is just a parenthesis. All right, let's look at another one. Let's do number 12. Okay, this one's a little bit more involved. So first thing first is we need to distribute. So now I have 10w minus 50 and bring down everything else. I'm going to combine my like terms. So this is going to be negative 45 plus 10w. Oh, I'm sorry, 46, not 45. All divided by 2 is less than w plus 7. I'm going to reduce this fraction. 46 divided by 2 is 23, and it's positive since these two are negative. Now it's a positive 23. And 10 divided by -2 is negative 5w is less than w plus 7. I'm going to bring my 5 to the other side so I don't have to deal with negatives if I can avoid it. So I have 6w, bring my 7 to this side. Now I have 16. All right, and then we're going to divide both sides by 6. Now I'm just going to reduce this. These both can be divided by 2, so that would be 8 over 3 is less than w. Okay, so I have my answer. I'm going to rewrite this and make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, and so 8 over 3 can be simplified to, let's see, 2 2 2/3. So let's just say that this is my 8/3, and this would be, let's say 2, this would be 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I need to see if 8/3 is less than W. I'm going to put my circle above that. It's going to be an open interval because it's not equal, less than or equal to. And W is greater, so that means I need to go this way. Okay, so I have my graphed answer, and I'm going to go ahead and write the interval notation from left to right. I hit my 8/3 first, and then I have my infinity, and remember that always gets an open bracket. So there's the answer for 12. All right, another thing that you should be somewhat familiar with, and we're not going to use it a ton right now, is set notation. So set notation is another way of expressing the solution of an inequality. You may be familiar where you see a set of numbers and they have um, these squiggly brackets, and you might have, let's say, 1, 2, 3 is inside the set, for example. Well, you can do the same thing when you're using it for inequalities, except it's a little bit different. So you have the set of x values where x is greater than 5, for an example, since we have an example of x being greater than 5. And so that's just how we read it. It's just saying anything, the set of values where x is greater than 5 is what is in the set. It would be way too strenuous to write all of those numbers inside those brackets, so we would write it in that format. So you would read this as the set of values where x is greater than 5. Okay.